Hello and welcome to Blank First Page. My name is Lucas. Today I'm going to be making a notebook out of trash. You might remember from a previous video that I had this field notes notebook that got caught in the rain with me and got completely soaked. And the way I saved it was to put sheets of this yellow pages paper in between the pages of the field notes notebook, and these sheets were kind of sacrificial sheets to absorb the water out of the field notes pages and dry it out. That worked extremely well. And at the end of that process, I just had this stack of yellow pages paper that has been sitting on my desk. And because it sits on my desk, I kind of reach over to it every so often and play with it and crinkle it. You know how we are here at Blank First Page with textures. This is fantastic paper texture because it's been moistened, I guess, and then dried out again. So you get this 3D element to the sheet, which starts out as, this is basically newspaper, but in a yellow pages book, because of the format of it, it's these crisp, thin sheets of paper. But the process of using this paper to dry another notebook out made this paper very nice to the touch. So then as I've been playing with this paper, I was reminded of another notebook that I have made a few years ago. In fact, I made it in 2019. And this notebook is made out of flour bags. So I make sourdough bread and I make it regularly, which means I try to buy flour in the largest quantities I possibly can. And when I was living in Australia, I had access to this fantastic brand of flour called Lauka. And they came in these 12.5 kilo bags. And the bags were just craft brown paper like this. And once I'd finished with a bag, I would stick it on top of my fridge. And when I had a big stack of them, I would take them to the recycling. One of the times I was doing that, as I do, I was thinking about paper and the feeling of the bags. And as I was walking to the recycling bin, I thought, well, this would actually make quite a nice notebook because most of the paper on these bags is blank, and just the fact that I had so many stacked up reminded me of a ream of paper. So I brought the sheets back in, I cut them to this rough size, and I used the 3 staple field notes method to just staple them together. Did a bit of a more refined finishing edge. It's still quite rough around the edges, but I had a notebook for free. The paper would have been recycled, but I was able to upcycle it. And the best thing about this notebook is that it is basically a field notes that has been pre-worn. I've spoken before a bit about how I like field notes and notebooks in general to be worn in. Because this paper started its life out as a flour bag, the process of scooping out flour to make bread, the bag gets really well used and then flattened out again when it's waiting to go to recycling. I had this really nice pre-textured paper. And outside of my field notes, this is actually one of the notebooks I've enjoyed using the most. As is often the case, the things that are free are the best. Even though this notebook is full, I still regularly take it out, put it on my desk just so I have something to crinkle and feel and sort of play with, because it just gives me that texture that I love so much. So anyway, this stack of paper from the yellow pages reminded me of that. So I've been thinking of ways in which I could turn this paper into a notebook as well. For whatever reason, the front pages of the yellow pages are actually roadmaps. And I think this would make pretty cool notebook paper. I'm not too fussed about writing on an image. So I've got this stack. They are individual sheets, so I'm not going to be able to fold them over like I did with the flower notebook. But I'm determined to make it work. Because the sheets themselves are quite thin, it's not going to provide a very good cover. So for the cover, I'm going to make use of this packing paper. This is wrapping paper that came with my container of things when I moved countries recently. And I'm going to find some way of folding this over itself so that it can be wrapped around the sheets. Basically, I want to wrap the sheets in the wrapping paper. I'll probably stitch through the spine, so there'll be a bit of a inset spine, which means the notebook won't be able to open flat, but that's fine. And I think in that way, I will have quite a unique interesting notebook. So other than the materials, I've got a few tools that I think I'll be needing. Some scissors, obviously to cut things to size. These clips will be good for holding everything together while I'm stitching. Some thread, obviously, and a safety pin, which I'll use the sharp end of to pre-poke the holes through which I will stitch. And the last things I have are a couple of extremely large and one very heavy book, which I will press the final notebook between. The caveat is obviously I have no bookmaking or notebook making experience other than this flower notebook, so my techniques are likely not technically correct, but hopefully they will do what I need them to do. Okay, so there you have it. This is the second in my line of homemade notebooks. I'm quite pleased with how this turned out. I used the saddle stitch method. The tools I have, they're actually from a leatherworking kit for making wallets and that sort of thing. So it's a nice and strong way of stitching together paper like this. This notebook is ultra pillowy. So because of the obviously the water damage on the Yellow Pages paper, it's got that 3D texture, which gives it volume, and the cover has these pockets of air in it because of the way that I folded. So it creates this very pillowy texture, but it folds down and it compresses quite nicely. So in the back of a pocket, it'll fit just right. It almost feels like a fabric because it's so bendy. I mean, I know already I'm going to just spend most of my time with this notebook bending it and rustling it. because it just feels so nice. Opens up quite nicely. It won't necessarily stay open, I guess, but this is going to be a very well used notebook. No one's going to be precious with this. We'll do a quick test. So I've got a Palomino natural pencil. Writes nicely enough. The newspaper is always a bit glossy, especially when it's printed on with color like this. So the pencil skids a bit, but I think pen, just a standard rollerball like this. Yeah, that's nice. It kind of feels bouncy to write on, and it's like writing on the back page of a notebook. I know some people only write on the crisp, fresh page of a notebook because it's nice and flat and clean and clear, and I love that. But what I also love is writing on the backside of a page, because you have these undulations in the paper from all your writing previously, so you get that texture both on the pen. You feel the pen kind of digging into the page and the page moving with you. It just adds another dimension to writing in a notebook. And what I've created here is basically a notebook that has all of that feeling, no matter what side of the page you're writing on. So for something that started out as a bunch of trash, pretty much, this is going to be a very enjoyable notebook to use. As usual, I'll have to figure out where to use it other than my daily notebook, because the daily notebook is reserved by field notes, but I am sure I'm going to find a nice use for this. So make yourself a notebook if you've got a spare yellow pages, or if you're also a baker and you have empty flour bags lying around, try this method. Try other things. Hopefully this has inspired you. Send me links in the comments of things that you've made, if you've made any notebooks. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.